And this whole thing sounds like I'm like really down on Cornish, and I'm like really not, because I have learned a lot. I just like, I don't think I did Cornish correctly. I wish I had the foresight beginning to know how to like navigate this system and do the things that I needed to do, you know, in order to get like fully what I could get out of the school. But you live and you learn. I wish I had learned like a technical skill that would be useful, like universally useful. Like I wish that I could have become like kind of like a tool, you know, like an actually like useful person to be on a film set with like a direct technical skill. I wish I could be like hyper proficient in like a technical skill so I could just like kind of like fit into like any ensemble, you know? But that did not really happen for me. And it's gonna be really difficult to work on professional sets and like other people's sets in the future unless they want like a director or a writer, you know? So that's kind of shitty.
I wish I knew that it would be very director and like, yeah, director and creativity focused rather than, you know, focusing on certain aspects of film. I'm not really someone who cares too much about directing my own films because I'll just hold the camera and then edit it later. But when it comes to bigger projects, I'm not a director, and that's pretty much all that Cornish expects film students to be. And I think they need to really open up to more specified topics within the film industry so we can actually, you know, figure out what we like and really, you know, hone in on that and get better at a certain thing.
The academic side of things is frequently not aligned with your like professional development as a filmmaker. And I think if I'd known that, I would have tried to maintain a sort of balance between the two. Because the sad fact is that in Seattle, if you're not like working semi-regularly or frequently on sets, people kind of either forget about you or find other people that can replace you on set, unless you're like in a really high position or you've got really good connections. And I think, you know, you should also strive for good connections, but if you want to kind of maintain some degree of, I guess, relevance, you've got to keep working. And I, for the first 2 years, kind of paused my work in favor of like academics and good grades. And now I think I've kind of overcorrected a little bit, but I've had to, like, to get back into it. You know, I've had to work a little bit harder to get on stuff, get on sets. And unfortunately, like, that's not a sacrifice I want to make. I want to maintain a balance. And it would be nice to know that I should come in with that mindset.
I wish that I had known that you're going to need to spend a lot of time like working on your own things with people and like getting involved with people personally in order to like function within the film world, because it's really all about like connections. You can know how to use a camera really well, or record audio or whatever, but the real way that you can get on sets is by being like personal with people and like making friends and making connections.
I don't know. I almost wish that I stood out with what I did earlier and I didn't try to like conform to just basic narrative structures, whether that's like writing. And I wish I experimented more. I also wish that I knew what I wanted to do after college, and I knew what aspect of film I actually wanted to go into, because perhaps if I did, I wouldn't be going here. If I knew more about what I wanted to do after college, it would have at least prepared me to start seeking those things earlier on in Cornish.
Having a niche in film allows you to sort of like become the guy for like a certain job. It kind of gives you like a definitive like in on projects. Like if you're kind of floating around, people aren't going to really come to you for anything besides like being a PA or something like that. But finding like the film like niche that you're passionate about and that you really like feel like connected to and that like resonates with you in some way is going to help you a lot.
I think that having a niche in film is important if you're trying to go into the industry and do it professionally. And you can actually have several niches, I think. But advertising yourself and building connections depending on a certain niche will just net you more jobs because people automatically associate like, oh, this guy, he does this thing. But just generally, it's good to have these skills, I think, broadly, which is a benefit of film school, is that you get to go and hopefully work a little bit in several different fields.
I think it's important to have a niche. Writing and directing is not a great niche to have when you're starting out, because nobody's going to hire you to write or direct when you're a child.
I think it's important to have a niche in film that you're good at so that you can really have that as like the main thing you advertise yourself with. Like if people want to use you on a set or use you for this or that, they need to know specifically what they're reaching out to you for, because usually people are like, okay, who can light? Who can do sound? Who do we know that usually does that and is the sound guy or the lighting dude?
It doesn't necessarily have to be just one niche. I find that having one or more than at least two or more is very helpful, because you can be into something like directing, but you know, it's very hard to be a director nowadays because that's the main role. You know, you usually have to work your way up in the industry to get a director role. And so you want to start off with something a little bit smaller, which is why, you know, I do camera and editing.
You should find a niche that is something that not everyone is going for. Like a director is not going to be a good niche. There's not a big market for a director. But for example, I have a friend, Dominique, who is a lighting person first and foremost, but also has a like mini niche, I'd say, of theater lighting. And it makes it so that like on a movie set, when they were shooting in a theater, he could work the theater lights as well and got paid extra money. So if you can kind of build these extra little niches within your niche, I think that's a huge benefit.
If I graduated today and wasn't working on sets the whole time I was at Cornish, like if I had continued from my experience 2 years ago, right, and just stayed at Cornish, wasn't on film sets outside of Cornish, God no. I would not be ready for like professional sets. Maybe I would like still be okay operating a camera in the like live streaming world, but no. I've learned so much more by being on set, and I think that's the case for like anyone. Being on set and doing the practical stuff is how you learn most things in film, and I think it's a little bit of it's a little bit short-sighted of Cornish to not provide those opportunities, but not really encourage those opportunities for our students.
Cornish has not prepared me for the film industry.
Fuck no, no way, no way. And that is like partially like a personal issue, you know, and yeah, it's definitely also like a Cornish imposed issue. I think it's partially me like not being like confident enough in my skill set, you know? Like I've seriously felt like kind of like a baby the entire time I've been going here, and I feel like I haven't been fully like prepared to enter the real world yet. I don't think that's like a main like focus in the Cornish Film Department, like our lives after Cornish. I think it's like really, yeah, I don't think like Lyle was really thinking about that, you know?
I don't think that I would be prepared to enter it on like the industry side of it. Like on the creative side of it, I feel prepared. On the industry side of it, I don't really know where to start.
If I graduated today, I don't think I would really be that prepared to go into the film industry. I don't think Cornish really prepares you for that at all. The most preparation I've got for the film industry from being at the school has just purely been through meeting people here who are already in the industry. And I wish that Cornish was more helpful with helping you find jobs that pertain to your career path and not just teaching you like who you are as an artist. I think a lot of people already know that about themselves, and also I don't think people necessarily need to know that about themselves.
I'd say I am prepared to enter the film industry. And I'd say that I am in the film industry already, or working, but there are caveats to that. Like I am not working full-time, and if I graduated, I would also still not be working full-time in the film industry. And a part of that, I think, is just like the film industry in Seattle is not very big, and it's hard to make a full-time living off of film here. I will say, like, I would not be working in the film industry at all if it weren't for my friends in film. Like if there weren't people around me who were also getting jobs, I wouldn't have jobs. It's like a big circle. Everyone is giving each other work.
However, that's not to say there aren't benefits to going to Cornish under the film program. I got to meet a lot of people that I like work with now, and it's good to have those crew connections because these are people that are outside, the commercial world and will just make stuff for fun. And that is a crucial aspect that I think you're gonna really struggle to get if you're like narrowly focused on the commercial world.
I would say Cornish has helped me and prepared me for my future solely on technical skills and not even that much. In terms of the business side, I've learned a lot more just from listening to peers, upperclassmen, and also I was able to work in some film adjacent work over multiple summers, and so I feel like on the business aspect, that was a lot of what I learned.
There are a lot of skills that are really important for success in the film industry. One is just like being hardworking, I think. If you show up and you're ready to just do whatever needs to be done to get the work done and people see that, I think it's really a good marker you can make on people. Also, like showing up on time is a good thing to do. Showing up in general is really important. I'd say, being kind to people on set, just like general things that everyone should know, but having like a real emphasis on those things and making an effort to do those things.
Networking is one of the biggest skills that people can have, and that's what all the old heads say, and that's what everyone says, and that's what I say to everybody, but it's true because I've gone on sets where my first PA gig, I didn't even know what a PA was. I thought I was going to be, I don't know what I thought I was going to be doing, but because I was networking, I got the gig in the first place, right? I've never been asked about a degree or asked about, oh, where are you studying? And so in terms of technical skills, networking is huge.
Skills that are very helpful to have in the film industry. I think definitely the first one that comes to mind is being able to improvise, because I don't think I've been on a single film set where something hasn't gone wrong and needed to be like fixed on the spot with some like kind of cobbled together like collection of materials that we happen to have, and we make it work because it's really important to know how to do that. Definitely communication is like maybe the most important beyond all others. If you're not communicating with, not even just as like a director, but if on any like role on set, if you're not communicating with people about what's going on and like letting people know what they need to know and also knowing what they need to know, you kind of become this like detached piece, and the film set really only works if everyone there is working together, of course.
You know, you're going to be on sets that are 12 hours long. Sometimes they can run even longer than that, and if it can tire you out. But if you're someone who likes to work hard and you are able to work for a long period of time and not really get tired of it, that's a really good thing to have in film.
There have definitely been Cornish classes that have influenced me, like, and helped me grow as a filmmaker. I think even though I don't like writing, I think it's important to say that you're not really going to learn the practices of writing a screenplay in the professional world unless like you're really in like a screenwriting world, and that's kind of difficult to get into. So I think that's definitely something that you can go to school for and you can learn. And Cornish has screenwriting classes. Were they taught by the best people? Not sure, but that's definitely something that I didn't like learn just by being on set.
It's kind of hard to think of a class that has been influential as a whole for me in film. But I would say that working with light has been quite helpful because we actually did work on projects as a class together.
The one class that stands out to me as being like the most helpful, or I think even the most fun, is working with light.
It was sort of a camera and lighting course mixed into one short class. So I wish we could have focused on each one individually more. But I do feel like it is the class in which I learned the most technically.
I feel like it was probably the class that I learned the most in, but I still left it not learning as much. You know, I got an A in it, but it's like I took the final test and I got so many questions wrong because I'm so focused on I just have to keep up in this class that I can't even retain what I'm actually learning.
I remember the visual storytelling class that I took really gave me a lot of like film language, like concepts to work with, and really like got me thinking about how like I could use the image itself to convey certain things like with intention, not just because like I something made me feel a certain way. I could actually like design it to like create a certain like emotion and a certain feeling within a film.
Yeah, no, I think my favorite class, or like the most like impactful class that I've taken so far, is like darkroom photography. I learned a lot in that class just about like contrast, like just like a lot of like visual, like a lot of my visual aesthetic choices have come from my darkroom photography class, and it was like cool to learn like an actual like technical skill and like be really hands-on with it and just focused on like one technical skill.
I wish they had classes for each individual role on a film set. I wish they had a recording sound class. I wish they had a grip class, and I wish they had a, gaffer and electric class. I wish they had a DP class, but they don't. And that's definitely something that if if this were to be a school to actually send people into the film industry, they would need, in my opinion.
I think one of the most helpful aspects of being a student at Cornish was the access to the cage. Like, I have a decent amount of my equipment that I use on every single project, but it is nice to be able to expand and actually use lighting equipment that I don't have, or sound equipment, or additional cameras, or anything that I need. And so that's always something nice, and especially now that Rachel's working there, I don't know, it feels a lot more inviting.
Being able to have access, or having access to all of the equipment that they have there, like cameras of all different levels, of not only like footage quality, but like usability, and audio equipment, and all of the random weird stuff in there is just great. And some of the best times that I've had here have really been just kind of messing around with all of the free equipment, pretty much.
There are some resources here at Cornish that I think have been quite helpful for me, such as MCC Squared, where we have all of our film equipment. That has been very nice to have access to, because of course we're all broke, so we don't really have the money to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on our own film equipment to produce really nice looking films. So that, yeah, just being able to have the access to cameras that, you know, or starter cameras within the industry, that's really cool for me to learn. I had been scared of touching cameras that shoot in RAW until I came to Cornish and actually started using the Blackmagics that they had.
You know, gear is not free. It's very expensive to have any sort of film gear. I will say MCC Squared's gear is fairly outdated in my opinion, at least when it comes to lights. I think we're in a world where professionally you will be using pretty much 100% LED lights, and the best that Cornish has for those is really the ICANN panel lights, some of which are not even dual color, and you know, it's really behind in that department.
We do have equipment, and I think it's workable. If you have to work for the equipment a little bit, and now that's not the worst skill in the world to have. That's you kind of have to do that to some extent on set anyway. So it's a struggle. We definitely don't have the most modern equipment or the most convenient equipment, but you can make movies with it. I think you can make good movies. Yeah, our equipment being a little tricky to work with isn't conceptually the end of the world, but I think for freshman filmmakers or for newer filmmakers especially, because we're not really taught how to work with that equipment, they can really struggle. I was just talking to Rachel literally today, right down at MCC Squared, that students are afraid to work with the Fresnel lights because they're scary. They're not LEDs. I mean, we have LEDs all around us. You can kind of wrap your head around that.
I don't think that there's great advertisement for people wanting to get stuff, you know? You kind of have to, it took me years to figure out that there was a basement under the Louis building with a bunch of props and furniture, because just nobody told me, you know? Yeah, I think the communication is a little messed up between the staff and the students about where to get the stuff that you need, you know? But it's here. It's just kind of a secret.
I have had a very hard time balancing academic responsibilities with creative and business film-related things. I have ADHD, so that automatically makes getting a homework done kind of a challenge sometimes. And then on top of that, this semester I shot my own film, and me and my girlfriend spent hours and hours, over 100 hours on this film to complete it. And as far as Cornish is concerned, it doesn't exist. Like, it's a film that was made really well, and there's no credit for it. And then also, like, I am a broke college student. I need to be working, so I take up film jobs whenever I can because I also want to further my career. And, you know, sometimes that's a day during class, and sometimes it's over the weekend, and then that automatically cuts into my grades. And it's definitely a strange environment to be in when you can do what you're going to school for professionally and it hurts you.
Balancing academic responsibilities with working on like actual sets is tough. I think that is a really hard balance to reach at Cornish. I think Cornish classes overall are, you know, fairly easy. I think it's, if you put your mind to it and you just work in your classes, you can pretty regularly get A's and pass. But it becomes more difficult if you actually want to make movies. That's not like incentivized, unfortunately. It's really gonna come from the like passion within in order to make those films. Like outside of class, if you want to do something because you want to do it, you got to sacrifice your grades. That's been my experience. That's been the experience of people that came before me, and I'm afraid that's going to be the experience of people who will come after me.
There is a Cornish thing where the kind of pie chart of work that you have to do is sort of almost maybe like 30 to 40% like stuff that you want to be doing, and the rest is like other classes that you need to take in order to get those credits. I think a really important thing is to remember that college isn't like high school, where like everything is sort of like equal. There are classes that are gonna need to be like sacrificed. If you have a class that's like some like gen ed class that the subject matter you don't really care for, but you need to take it, it's okay to not put as much effort into that as like your film class or whatever you want to be learning about.
Trying to balance my senior thesis with everything else that I have to do has been a very big struggle for me. Because obviously senior thesis, that's required. I have to make it to graduate, that's for a class, but it's really like my project, and it's the biggest project I've ever worked on. And I think when people hear about it, because, oh, Isaiah shot early, so he's so far ahead, it's like, no, I'm perfectly on time, but now I'm feeling like I'm actually behind it now, because I gotta work on this other assignment, maybe not even for a film class, or I gotta watch these multiple films so that we never talk about them in the class that we're watching a film for, or I don't know, I do wish I had a lot more time to actually work on the projects that will actually matter when I'm outside of the school.
It's just like an insane time commitment to go to classes every day for like 4 or 5 days a week. And I mean, like, that really is like the nature of like going to school, you know? But it's definitely, it's hard to balance like homework time for like 6 classes and then like creative time. And I think like the lines between like my creative practice and like my like homework have become blurred because I'm like going to school for like an art form. I think this happens like to like most art students, like your passion like becomes your homework.
Being at Cornish has made making my own personal projects more of a burden than something I get excited about, because I spend so much time in school learning about how to be creative and who I am as an artist, and not actually using that time to really work on any films. That I'm just so creatively burnt out that I can't even think of things like that I would even want to make on the side. Any film project that has been assigned to us has yeah, definitely just made me feel more burnt out, and that translates to my own personal life. But there's also other things, like I think COVID really, took that passion out of me during my first year, because it was all online, really. And so, like, starting my first year in film school, and I can't even really connect with anybody or make any films and have people help me. It just kind of made it seem like it was too difficult and that it was impossible for me to even make anything.
The biggest mistakes I see student filmmakers make, especially at Cornish, is disregarding their crew and their cast. I think when film majors are first working with, whether it's theater majors or any type of other cast, we like to cast our friends, a lot of stuff. People see that as just another piece in the puzzle of making this film. That's the end of the goal, is just, we're making this film. But these are humans. And for theater majors and for actors, if they're spending all of this time, and a lot of the time they're just sitting around, that's a huge mistake, because you can't take people for granted. You just really can't. Also, to all the future directors and actors out there, stop acting in your own films. You can do a little cameo in your big projects, but until you know what an assistant director is, and until you can lock it down, stop acting in your films that are, like, important.
I could talk about a mistake that I've personally made. Working on a set this last year for a thesis film, the director sent messages to my girlfriend about another person on set, saying what they wanted to do to them sexually. And it was shown to me, and I was like, well, don't show that to him, because he'll leave the project. We should just finish it. We should get through it. I think I was in such a mindset of, you just work through the movie until it's done, and you do the bestest work you can. And I think that is a good way to think usually, but I think you should also be aware of the conditions that you are working in. And that's not something that I was paying attention to like a huge fault. Like, I let my friend be sexually harassed so that this film could be completed. And that's not okay. That's absolutely appalling. And there are other things too that could definitely be like looked at. Like, another film that I worked on was shot by a lake at night, and the shoot went till like 5 a.m. That's not okay. And they got us a pizza for a full crew. Like, each person got half a slice of barbecue pizza. That's not okay. Like, that's another set where I think it would have been okay to walk from. I think that's something that I've definitely needed to learn that I haven't. Like, sometimes you need to just walk away from a set for your safety, for your other crewmates' safety. And a lot of times, the people that you're walking from don't really deserve your help, to be completely honest. like on that shoot that was at the lake, the director left before we were done packing up. So I don't think they really cared about their crew enough for the crew to stick around.
You know, the classics, like you kind of neglect sound, and that's sound is like 50% of the movie. And also people are more willing to accept bad visuals than bad sound. So, but that's, you know, that can be easily addressed, just prioritizing, like, hey, you gotta have good audio, and you teach people how to make good audio earlier in their Cornish careers. Otherwise, I think some degree, it's just like, how professional is your practice in terms of like production, right? Do you send out call sheets? Do you provide like some degree of like crafty or like water for people? You know, some sort of amenities for the crew. And to some degree, if that's just like your friends, then whatever. But I think having some degree of professionalism just in general makes sets flow smoother. So that may, you know, assist some Cornish sets.
I think a mistake that I see filmmakers make a lot of the time is not putting thought into what their shots look like. But I could also say that they don't really have the skill set to be able to put the thought into those shots. But at that point, it's like, you know, a lot of us had to teach ourselves how to make a film look good.
They tend to fall into a pattern of shooting things like the same way every time, like shooting a conversation, like two people in a room, and just shooting one person at a like a very like there they are angle, and then the other person in the same way, and just kind of going back and forth, and it's telling the story, but it's not really engaging with like the potential of film.
I mean, like, you gotta ask for help. Like, trying to do everything yourself is kind of whack. I mean, that's what I tried to do for many years. So, I mean, you gotta talk to people. You need to ask for help. Like, if you don't know how to do something, don't like pretend like you know how to do lighting, because you probably don't, you know? Yeah, no, you should definitely ask people and like listen to them and let them do their thing, because your movie's gonna look better when you ask people who actually know how to do their shit to do their shit.
If I had to give advice for anybody entering Cornish Film Program, one, I would make sure that they are definitely in the right program. Not performance production, not theater, not this, not that. Making sure they're really in the film department for a reason. I'm never the one to tell people to drop out of Cornish. I've probably told one person at least, but like, that's never like the most ideal circumstance. I always tell people to make the worst films of their life, because I genuinely feel like there's times where you're gonna learn, okay, maybe don't film at Cornish, maybe don't mix lighting temperatures, or like, I don't know, you're gonna learn the technical skills when you will, and by peers and by upperclassmen and all that stuff. Just make horrible films and actually make stuff.
To be successful as a film major, you need to do work outside of classes in film. And you should pass your classes, but you don't really need to do classwork for film, I don't think, as much. Like, it's good to do. It's good to pass your classes. It's good to study film. There's just a lot of it that is not going to be as helpful, I think, as just working on a set outside of class in any way. You know, they say practice makes perfect, and I think that's very true of film. You're not going to be a good filmmaker from watching a movie. You're going to be a good filmmaker from making movies.
put in the effort to learn things on their own time. I think a lot of what I've learned was because I was working on a film for class, and like, for example, editing. If I'm editing a project and there's a specific thing that I don't know about, I will go and look it up on YouTube and teach myself that. And then I can do it afterwards. Like, you're gonna have to be able to, you know, put in that effort, work hard on your own. If you really are passionate about this, you will put in the work on your own time.
Yeah, like definitely find a niche, like find an actual like technical marketable skill. Like as like depressing as that sounds, you know, for people who are like really into like the creative aspect of it, and like for people who like filmmaking is like a kind of like religion for them, you know, like it's depressing because you want to be like this artist, but like it's like at the end of the day, it's like not really about that if you want this to be the rest of your life and if you want this to be your career. Like it doesn't matter how much of a shit you give about the artistry. Like you're going to need a viable skill or you will be worthless.
Was that I should see Cornish for what it is, right? And it's an opportunity to make connections and make friends with other people who are similarly passionate about filmmaking. But to not really see a film degree as this like big thing that you need for success as a filmmaker. You can make amazing movies without having gone to film school. There are plenty of filmmakers who have never gone to film school. And if you want to work professionally, no one asks if you have a film degree. Seeing Cornish not as a sum of its parts, but as like a bunch of small things, some of which are useful to you and you should focus on and take advantage of for your own filmmaking like journey.
Make friends here. Make friends with everybody here in any, in any major, because they can be very helpful for, parts of film that you don't even realize. Like, for example, you can get an art major to make a poster for your film. And having a poster for your film is very cool because that's a thing that you can use to market that film. Making friends with the theater majors here. You're gonna have people that can act in your film because they're actors and you have access to those resources all around you. Also music majors, they can make a score for your film. So just broaden your friend groups.
I think the best advice I could give to someone starting out in the film program would be to not be afraid of like talking and making some connections with people. The projects that I started to make here that like really felt like they took off like creatively and really engaged me were ones where I was like excited about like working with somebody who I had met here, and don't be afraid to not know something. You're gonna learn stuff in your classes, and they're gonna be good and great, but also a big part of learning film here, and I would think anywhere, is really to just kind of like jump into it. And if you don't know how to do it, then just like make something up, because there's so many ways to do everything, and you don't need to know like the specific like standard way of doing something in order to make a movie.
I'm still trying to debate if going to film school is worth it, let alone Cornish. Film school in general, considering that every single job that I've had within film, outside of film, never once have they asked, where are you getting your BFA from? Oh, you're going to Cornish? They say that's cool. I was working for a few different companies. They didn't even know I was a film major. Like, I did film work, but they're like, oh, maybe you're theater or something. It did not matter. I could have been a freaking design major and probably gotten the same amount of film opportunities that I've gotten being a film major at Cornish.
In some ways, yeah. In some ways, definitely. I mean, I've had a lot of fun because I have that luxury, you know? I mean, film school is a luxury. It's definitely not a necessity. Yeah, it's totally not a necessity. But like, since I had the means to come here, like, I'm glad that I did, because I've had fun and I've met people who I enjoy dearly, you know? But I mean, overall, it was definitely a waste of my parents' money, just like based on like what's coming out of this experience, you know? Like, I've had fun, I've like made cool stuff, but are they going to get like a money return from me entering the film industry and, you know, having a career? Uncertain. So, I mean, if you have a lot of money, or if your parents have a lot of money, fuck yeah, go to film school. But if you don't, it's definitely a waste of your parents or your money. Yeah.
Is it worth it for me? Sure. Yeah, I think I have the means where I can go to film school and it's worth it. Is it worth it? Like, Cornish isn't a cheap school. I mean, relative to like other film schools, I think it is. But if you're just looking to work in the film industry and that's it, I don't think Cornish is worth it. But then again, I don't think any film school is worth it at that point. I don't think that's a mark specifically on Cornish.
I think there could be a lot of reasons that it's not worth it. The price, the quality of the education, the quality of the place in the world that it is. One of the most important, if not the most important thing that I learned in college is that things aren't going to be worth it to you unless you make them worth it most of the time. There was a time a few years ago when I really felt like going here wasn't worth it, and I almost dropped out and went to a school with like a much bigger and like fancier film program, and it was around that time that all of my film cohort, I really started to like engage with them and feel like I was actually part of like a community, and that people wanted me to be around and wanted to work with me, and I realized that I wanted to work with them, and that those connections that I had made with people were more important than like the quality of like the equipment or the education that I was getting.
I 100% think going to film school was worth it. Not because of what film school gave me, but because of what film majors have given me. And some film teachers, I think. But yeah, like before I came to film school, I was making movies on my iPhone and just like doing it for fun and throwing it up on YouTube and shooting one of these little movies a week and just like, there it is, yay. But I mean, I've learned so much about the technical side of film. I've learned so much about the creative side of film. I think I've learned more than I thought there was to know about film. But also, I would not be able to work in the film industry if I hadn't gone to film school. And also, they really helped me get jobs too. They have helped me in every step of the way. And they helped me make movies as well. I wouldn't be able to make a movie on the level I do if I didn't go to film school and have all these great friends who are willing to help me out.
I feel like the friends that I've made here and the boyfriend that I fell in love with here have really made Cornish a better place for me. I think that they've all taught me really important things like communication on sets, and they've taught me more extensive, like the people who do have a little bit more knowledge and skills with film, they've taught me certain things within film that have made me a better filmmaker. And I just think the entire moral support that we all have together is, yeah, that just makes me a good filmmaker, is the people that I surround myself with here.
I think that I could market myself as a filmmaker more than I have. I think that that falls to not really having the resources in which to like show people in the film industry in Seattle like who I am and like what I've done. In terms of here, I definitely market myself as a filmmaker. I talk to all sorts of people about it, and if anyone wants me to work on something, I feel very excited about that, and I'll like ask them to work with me. And I haven't really found that that place where I can like have people coming to me and say like, hey, do you want to like, would you record sound on my project, like outside of Cornish yet? I hope to get there.
No, not at all. Yeah, not at all. Like making films is like a super like weird and like private thing that I do, which is like not how it's supposed to be. Like I don't market myself as like a filmmaker or like a person with like skills in that area, you know, because I feel like I you know, don't really have like skills applicable in that area, even though I've been going to film school for like 3 years. Like I feel like I can like write a movie, like make a movie like for myself, but I feel like I wouldn't really fit into anybody else's vision just because I like focused on like myself for so long.
There are two ways in which I really, quote unquote, market myself as a filmmaker. And I think the first and most important thing is just word of mouth connections. So talking to people on set, like even if it's kind of outside of your department or, you know, just, you know, being friendly, people see what work you're doing and then are like, hey, that guy was doing really good on this set, even though he was like in a completely different department than I was. I'm gonna call him to this other set because I like the work he was doing here. And that's how I get most of my connections, I think, and I think that's probably the same for most people. But also, yeah, I have a website, and I have business cards, even though like that's very rarely used. Yeah, I think it's good to have those options. If I was on social media more, I'd probably have like a curated social media page.
I really want to have an Instagram account that is just purely my work in film, just so I can have it as a portfolio and also so people online can see that and they can know what I do, and if I do it well, they can hire me.
There's this YouTube channel, Cut, which, God, everyone's always like pulling up videos that I've been on, and I'm like, this was like years ago. But anyways, production company out of Seattle, they're broke now, so they haven't hired me in a while. But that was like one of my biggest wins, where I was able to goof off on a video of theirs and eventually make a connection, and I got some PA gigs. And honestly, I learned a lot. And I was able to also meet a lot of different creatives that were working on the videos and just on the videos. And I felt really proud because that was the first time that I really like marketed myself and networked, but also felt comfortable what I was doing. Like, I loved being on those 12-hour sets. Like, usually when I'm doing client work, I always think I'm so stressed and like they need me, but I don't know what I'm doing. But that was a super comfortable set to be on.
I'd say my best networking strategy has been to make meaningful connections with others in film. I've made friends with, people like Alex or Gideon or Max, and they have been the people who most frequently offer me jobs on sets. And those are super, super helpful to me because then I can go onto the set and meet a whole new group of people, from which point I continue to grow relationships and continue to get more job opportunities. So I think, the best networking thing you can do is get on sets, meet more filmmakers, become friends with more filmmakers, because at the end of the day, it's kind of a circular thing. Like I said, it's filmmakers usually make films and then employ filmmakers. So,
if you want to grow in the film industry, there are two main ways to go about it. First is starting as a PA and getting on like lower paying jobs, or maybe working, some jobs for free, and kind of working your way up slowly. So taking more of a role in like under the department that you're looking to get into. So, maybe you're helping unload like the grip truck or the lighting truck as a PA versus the, helping with camera equipment. And that's kind of slow and steady. The way that I got into my niche in the Seattle film industry is by working with a mentor. So I volunteered for like 2 years working for free at a concert live streaming series called Sessions in Place. And that's where I learned most of what I know about camera operation and just kind of film in general. And that gets you into things a lot quicker. So even though I worked for free for 2 years, I was then called by my mentor back for jobs once he had the money to pay me. And I had to do very little PAing, and I got to go straight into what I like doing most, which is camera operation.
It's just kind of a word of mouth thing. I've been recommended for certain sets just because people know me or people have worked with me before. One time there was this senior when I was a junior that I'd never worked with. I didn't know much about him, but then eventually I'm helping second AD and produce his senior thesis because I just randomly helped on one of his other film sets. And so I always like making new connections because I never know what could happen because of them. And so that was always fun for me because I always tell people, and I'm always recommending people to other people, just like, if you need somebody, I'm not free that day, but also I know 3 people that I would trust with my life to do this job for you.
Our class had a different head of department, that being Lyle, who I think severely hurt the program for years to come. But I do see it getting better in a lot of ways. So if I have been really down and out about the Cornish film program and you're in it, I think it will be getting better, and I think there will be more opportunities than we had to become better filmmakers through the actual lessons and program.
Just make work that you want to see. it can be hard to know that sometimes, but like, try not to think about it too hard. The best work that I've made, and when I say best, I mean the work that that when I watch it back, it feels like something that I would like to see just like anywhere, even if it didn't come from me. The best work that I've made here has been the work that I've made just because it felt right to do. It doesn't always have to make sense. It doesn't have to adhere to film rules unless you want it to. It's an amazing thing.